Well, that episode broke me. As always, I've got some good things to say and some bad things to say. The official synopsis for this episode goes, battle rages across the skies as the unholy trinity unleash their deadly ambition. The Doctor, Belinda, and Ruby have to risk everything in their quest to save one innocent life. So what I usually do is I start with the good of the episode, what I liked about it, and then go into the bad. But for this one, I think we're going to switch it up and we're going to start with the bad, and then I'll get to the good stuff. Don't worry, I'm going to talk about the 13th Doctor and the regeneration soon. Don't worry, that is all covered in this video. But one bad thing right off the gate is that I had to get up at 4 a.m. to watch this episode because for the most part for this series, I was able to watch Doctor Who when it landed on Disney Plus here in Australia at like 5 p.m. It was the best. I've never had Doctor Who on a Saturday night. But yes, getting up at 4 a.m. I was pretty used to that being an Australian Doctor Who fan because that's usually the time Doctor Who drops here in Australia. It'll be like 4 a.m. on a Sunday. But I had to do it for this channel, so please subscribe because I hope this proves that I am committed to this channel and getting this review out. So it's free if you subscribe. It's a free thing to do and a nice thing to do, so please do it. Okay, right out the gate, one thing that annoyed me is the handling of the Rani. I'm a big fan of the Rani as a character. I just recently watched The Time in the Rani for a video that you'll see very soon. And Archie and Anita are really, really good actresses, and I was excited to see them utilize this episode. And boy, oh boy, I was so disappointed, especially with Mrs. Flood. She gets like 0 screen time and 0 redemption. They set up something really interesting with the fact that these two bi-generated and don't get along with each other. I was like, there's got to be a moment where Mrs. Flood is like, I'm sick of this. I'm sick of what you're doing, and somehow betrays the other Rani. But no, what happens is that the Rani gets eaten by Omega, and that's pretty much, that wraps up the entire story. That like, oh, the threat is eliminated. And that happens like halfway through the episode. You're like, oh, okay. And Mrs. Flood just grabs the time ring, is like, I'm out of here. See ya. And that's it. We've had 2 years leading up to this reveal of the Rani, and it's all wrapped up within half the episode. Mind-blowing. It has never explained why Mrs. Flood can break the fourth wall. It's never addressed. We'll never know. I think that will be one of Doctor Who's many unanswered questions. I did just briefly mention Omega. I was excited to see what they were going to do with Omega. Omega is like this big bad in classic Doctor Who with this incredible design, this very iconic helmet. And here, he's this big CGI thing. I should have seen it coming after Empire of Death. I'm like, yeah, we're doing the same thing. But he had even less time than Sutek did. He's there for a couple seconds. So it begs the question, like, do we really need him to be included? Like, we made this entire wish world just to get to the Underverse so that we could see this guy, and then he eats the Rani and goes. If I look at these two designs side by side, I know which one I find more visually interesting. And the way the Doctor defeats Omega is by using the Vindicator, and I enjoyed, the Vindicator I'm glad is back because it's been such an integral part of this series, but it really does just look like a gun. And that's fine. But Russell a few years ago made a comment about how the sonic screwdriver looks too much like a gun or something in that vein, which is why Ncuti Gatwa's sonic screwdriver looks all different. But here the Vindicator clearly looks like a gun and acts like a gun and is used to defeat the enemy. So what are we doing? Shirley, Rose Noble, and Mel are all characters that I really, really like, but are severely underutilized this episode. And by underutilized, I mean they have like a couple of lines. I was so excited for the rematch between Mel and the Rani. I really thought that something was going to happen there, and they have like a very brief exchange, and then Mel's like not in the rest of the episode. It obviously is a finale, and there's a lot of characters involved. Like they bring Susan Triad back, and she's actually pretty good this episode. She actually does have a role, unlike Shirley and Rose and Mel. But there are just so many people in this episode that it definitely does feel overstuffed. And this episode is longer. It's like how long is it? It's like 1 hour and 6 minutes, which is, you know, a considerable bump up from the 45 that we're used to. But it still feels like it goes at a absolutely insanely fast rate to try and get through everything. Now let's talk about Conrad. Conrad is kind of like one of the bigger bads this season. We saw him in Lucky Day, and he's really not a nice guy. And the Rani brought him into this wish world. It's his wish world. He's imagined it, and he's a central figure as to why this reality is the way it is. And he's truly not a nice guy, but yet he seems to have gotten some kind of redemption arc. Like they redeem him slightly, or like they give him like a happy ending, because Ruby makes a wish for him to go and have a happy life. So it's like we're seeing a version of Conrad who isn't the mean dude, but we've just seen him be mean for the entire season. And it's like, why does he get the happy ending? They play on the fact that his father wasn't a very nice guy, so I'm sure that there's something in that, but I feel like we could have explored that a little bit more as to the ethics of it all. Now, Belinda Chandra. If you asked me at the end of The Well where I thought Belinda Chandra was going to rank in like my personal like favorite companions, I feel like she could have easily crept into the top 3. I really enjoyed the idea of this reluctant companion. She seemed a bit more self-assured. She works in healthcare. She's a very caring person, and you know, the reluctancy I just thought was such an interesting dynamic. But she's not really in Lucky Day. She's not really utilized in the story in the engine. In the Interstellar Song Contest, there's some good stuff there. And then in Wish World, she's like this imaginary person for a lot of it, so it's not the real Belinda Chandra. So for the first half of the season, I'm like, yeah, she's great. For the second half, she is severely underutilized, and she was absolutely underutilized this episode. I understand why, because she wants to be with Poppy, and she's like, well, I'm her mum, I should take care of her. Which is great. And, you know, it's a motherly instinct. Of course you want to take care of your child. But in doing that, it kind of eliminated her from the story of being able to get involved heavily in the plot. She kind of sits in a box for a substantial amount of this episode. So on the one side, I'm like, yeah, that's a very smart thing to do. Please be with your child. But at another time, it kind of... like, I just wish we had more time with Belinda. This 8-episode thing, we really don't get much time with her. But my final gripe with this episode was the fact that it is Ncuti Gatwa's last. We spent more time knowing that Ncuti Gatwa was going to be the Doctor than having Ncuti Gatwa as the Doctor. Which is absolutely insane, because I was actually growing to quite like Ncuti Gatwa's Doctor. In season 1, I wasn't quite sure where I sat with him. But season 2, I feel like did a lot with the Doctor. But this was it. He actually regenerated this episode. Which I think they kind of pulled off. So let's talk about the good. Anita is back from the Time Hotel? Hello? What? Never in a million years did I think we would see that character again, because she was the absolute highlight of Joy to the World, more so than Joy. She was an absolute delight, and I wasn't really expecting her to kind of like fall in love with the Doctor. And then she found out that the Doctor liked Roged, and she was like, oh, okay, I guess I'll go and marry someone else. But I enjoyed her inclusion in here, and I enjoyed the line where she was like, oh, I'm like, you know, the hotel manager of this place, and I have the master key, so I could basically get into any door. And it's like, yeah, of course, if you worked at the Time Hotel and you were a manager, I guess you kind of do have access to all of time and space. It's a cool way to be a time traveler. And another compliment I will kind of pay to this season of like RTD2 is that it definitely feels more connected. This season feels way more connected than season 1 did, thanks to the Vindicator and Belinda, and now we're even linking into the Christmas special. I don't know if we've ever linked into a Christmas special this hard, but I think it's all the better for it. Ruby Sunday is strong in this. At the end of season 1, I was really not a fan of Ruby Sunday, but Lucky Day did a lot of heavy lifting, being like, oh no, she's actually a good character. And in this, she is a strong character as well. Probably she does more than Belinda in this episode, which is a shame, but she does well. And one of the highlight scenes for me is when Ruby is realizing that, oh, the world is still not what it seems. Like I said it last week, I'm an absolute sucker for when someone realizes they're in a dream. And that scene where they're gradually like folding this jacket and it's getting smaller and smaller, and it's never really addressed. But as a viewer, you're watching this and being like, oh, something doesn't feel right here. And you're like, oh no, the reality is still warped and there are a few glitches. Now, this one may be controversial because it doesn't really make a lot of sense and it doesn't need to be there, but the 13th Doctor rocked up in this. And look, I understand it's very fan servicey, it's very time crash. But I loved it. I'm always a fan of Jodie. Her era is not necessarily my favorite, but Jodie Whittaker as the Doctor, such a good vibes, man. I've got a soft spot for multi-Doctor stuff, so it was a nice surprise, a genuine surprise that didn't leak. But it was awesome to see her again. I think she's a delight. It was like a little precursor to the regeneration. And I thought the reason for the regeneration was quite nice as well, because, you know, it was a life for a life. The Doctor sacrificed a lot of his regeneration energy into the TARDIS so that he could save the life of this wish-made daughter of his, Poppy. It's absolutely insane when I say sentences like that, and reminds me that Doctor Who is a bonkers show. But saving the little guy is what the Doctor does best. Like, in the end of time, the Doctor goes through this massive, massive thing with the Time Lords and the Master, but ultimately he regenerates to save his mate, Will. So I feel like Russell was definitely pulling on those strings for this episode, and weirdly enough, it worked for me. And Ncuti Gatwa's final line line being, this has been an absolute joy, really didn't feel like his doctor. It felt like Ncuti Gatwa being like, thank you, I've very much enjoyed my time here. That's what I got from that scene. I thought it was quite touching. But Billie Piper is the next doctor? What? Well, kind of. In the credits, they don't credit her as the doctor, so I'm not quite sure how she fits into all of this, but it was nice to have a genuine surprise regeneration, because they tried to do it back in 2022, but a lot of us were like, oh, I think David Tennant's probably reprising the role. But with this one, I'd never heard of Billie Piper reprising the role, so it was an actual surprise, and weirdly enough, I think this concept could work. Are the Doctor Who creative team running out of ideas? Maybe. Billie Piper is fantastic. I've seen both seasons of I Hate Susie, and she is brilliant in that, and I have no doubt that she would absolutely crush being the Doctor, but it will be strange seeing how she would play it differently to being the companion. Like, it's a completely different set of skills, but I think Billie Piper could definitely do it. So I think there's some really good stuff in this episode, but as I said before, with like the Rani being killed off halfway through, I feel like this episode is 2 episodes stitched together, and something happened behind the scenes, because, bear with me now, tinfoil hats on, I really don't think Ncuti Gatwa was supposed to regenerate this episode, but something happened behind the scenes, whether he was like, actually, I don't want to return, or if the Disney deal is being pulled, or something like that. But I would put some money on that this was not the original ending for the episode. I feel like the original ending was going to set up, you know, the Doctor wanting to find Poppy or something, which doesn't sound like that interesting of a season arc, but I feel like that's where they were going with it. But something happened and they had to do some reshoots, which was heavily talked about. They were doing some reshoots. And I really think the regeneration stuff was the reshoots. And the way they kind of like plonked Billie Piper's head on at the end makes me feel like Billie Piper filmed this like way after Ncuti filmed his regeneration scene. But there was that whole thing last year when Ncuti Gatwa was a guest on the Graham Norton show, and he was asked about Doctor Who, and like he was like, oh yeah, we're filming season 3 next year sometime. And that quote was mysteriously edited out of the episode, which just makes alarm bells for me, being like, oh no, Ncuti was under the impression that he was going to film a 3rd season, and something happened between now and then. But yeah, that's just my tinfoil hat on conspiracy theory that there's a different version of this story that maybe worked better and felt less convoluted, because you already had to accomplish a lot before you bring back the 13th Doctor and have a Doctor regeneration. Like, it's a lot to achieve in an episode. But the future of Doctor Who is not certain. Is Billie Piper going to play the Doctor? Is Russell T Davies returning? Is he going to be showrunner, or is he going to act like a Kevin Feige type and we're going to get a new showrunner? Is Disney Plus staying on, or are the BBC going to produce it themselves? Anything and everything is possible, and that's exciting but scary. The Reality War was a huge world-ending finale that you would expect from Russell T Davies. There's too many characters with a lot of twists and turns, and maybe a returning face or two. I will give The Reality War a 6.5 out of 10. Is that harsh? Maybe. Let me know what you thought of the episode in the comments below. I've seen a lot of mixed reactions. I've seen some 10 out of 10s. I've seen some 1 out of 10s. Please let me know your thoughts in the comments below. I would love to read them and go through them. I just wanted to say thank you for tuning in each week for these reviews. I haven't really done weekly reviews edited like this for ages, so thank you for being here and being a part of that. But please make sure you subscribe to the channel, because I've got some incredibly exciting stuff coming up. I'm talking a lot about classic Doctor Who real soon, and that's something I'm really, really passionate about at the moment, so please make sure you subscribe. You do not want to miss it. And if you want a more in-depth discussion on this episode, I recently just did a podcast that was like 2 hours long, so go and watch that. Yeah, thank you. Bye.